Right, so welcome back to Audio Solutions. Today's video is going to be about speaker setup and how to set your speakers up within your church, what sort of coverage you need to look for. Um, Another cool thing, I promised you guys a few videos back that I was making some adjustments to my camera setup. So today we're going to test a new sort of better quality camera to the one that I sort of had on my previous videos. Um, but I'm learning. I'm getting there. I'm sort of improving as I go. So yeah, soon we'll build into something that's going to be much sort of nicer. But today we're speaking about speakers. So yeah, a lot of the time people ask questions about how I should set my speakers up in church so that I maximize on coverage, which means you distribute evenly to the entire church so everybody can hear clearly. You don't want to have a situation where some people are coming to you and say, can you turn it up? Other people are coming to you and saying, look, it's too loud, can you turn it down? You want to have even distribution across the board. And I'll be showing you some tips and tricks on how you can do so with your speakers. You also want to talk about in terms of the building setup. So I mean where people are sat, where your speakers should be, and how you choose to actually set your building up. Because believe it or not, a lot of people might say we're going to leave that to so the ushering team or whatever it is. If you don't play a part in that process, you'll have a situation where the setup won't work from a sound perspective. And the reason why it's very important that the setup works from a sound perspective is this: people are coming to church. The main two sort of things that happen in church is number one, praise and worship, and number two, the word. Now, these are the most important things from the perspective of a member of the congregation as to why they're coming to church. So, whilst you may just think, oh, I'm just in the sound ministry, it's not that important, I don't have a say. The problem you face with that is that people will be coming to church, and if they can't hear clearly when the word is being preached, they're missing out. More importantly, if they can't, how do you put it, absorb the praise and worship correctly, the way it was intended, again, they're missing out. So your part is actually quite vital. And where you set your speakers is very important in the whole process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call speaker coverage, and it is what it is. It's like network coverage. It's just ensuring that every single area that needs to get sound gets it, and that you're not wasting sound in areas that don't need to get sound. And I've got a few diagrams that I'm going to show you, and I'll talk you through them, and it'll be quite clear by the time we finish this video exactly what you need to do with regards to setting up your speakers, where you need to put them, and to maximize the area of your coverage. Now, this may involve a little bit of negotiating. It may involve a little bit of speaking to other areas in the church to sort of say, look, this is where we're at. This is what we're trying to achieve. Can we sit down and actually have a practical discussion about how we can get the best results possible? Because at the end of the day, all ministries need to work together to ensure there is everybody's delivering, so that when God wants to speak to his children, there's no hindrance because there was technical inability, if that makes sense. So you will be held accountable as well. So you need to make sure that you um, are executing your job properly. I mean, think about it. Someone's gone out there and they've witnessed. A new person decides to say, look, I'll come to church, and that's the day they're supposed to receive Christ, and they don't because they can't clearly hear the word, and they don't make the decision that day, and that's all on you. You're going to be held accountable for that. And how are you supposed to answer to something like that? You can't continue to give excuses. So take the time out. These videos are free, so learn as much as you can, and get perfect your trade, so that you can also stand accountable and say, look, I made sure that I did my part. One thing you also need to note in terms of speaker coverage is this: if you look at the human body, the psychology or the psychological part of the human anatomy, they'll tell you that when it comes to concentrating and listening, so this will apply to class, this will apply to listening to music, this will also apply to hearing the word or participating in praise and worship, that a human being can only engage for so long. So I think somebody was saying in terms of classroom, they were saying the human mind can only sort of engage actively for about 20 minutes and then it switches off. So your teachers are sort of designed to keep switching things around. So they'll do 20 minutes of talking, then they'll put, maximum of 20 minutes of talking, then they'll have like a practical exercise just to change things up to ensure that your mind is constantly engaged. And it's not just a case of just coming and standing in front of you for an hour and just rattling off information and thinking that you will absorb it. You'll absorb less. But how it works is quite simple. Inside your ears, you've got these little bones, and what they do is they vibrate when air passes over them. That's how you actually hear things. So depending on how harsh the air movement is, and this ties in really perfectly with how speakers work, but depending on how harsh the air movement is or how gentle the air movement is, that's how harsh and how gentle it brushes over these tiny little bones that are located inside your ear. They're very small. Now, when you are talking about how your mind processes it, is the vibration that these bones sort of do. They send a signal through to your brain, and your brain interprets that. Okay, so straight away off the bat, you can imagine harsh vibrations will mean that your brain will want to push away that information as much as it can. And gentle, softer vibrations would mean that your brain will be quite relaxed, quite comfortable, and quite calm. So if you are doing sound, you'll know straight off the bat if your sound sounds harsh. So for example, we talked about EQing a mic, and you heard the difference in my voice when we changed the EQ settings on the mic. If you can EQ a mic for clarity, what would happen is the brain would be able to assimilate that information because the bones aren't moving frantically. They're quite calm and it's quite gentle, and it makes it easier for the brain to process that information. If it's easier for the brain to process that information, it means your brain can process it for a longer period of time. So if you find that people aren't engaged in the sermon, a lot of the times a pastor might turn around and say, it's because I didn't preach the sermon too well. Well, actually, in reality, they couldn't engage with the sermon because it sounded terrible. And for the first few minutes, they were there trying to pay attention. But your mind gets tired. It gets tired after a while. So if you listen to music or, whatever you decide to listen to, through some terrible speakers, through terrible headphones, you won't enjoy the experience as much. Therefore, you won't listen for too long. But if you listen to music through high-quality speakers, you will enjoy for much more. And they carried out many experiments. I mean, you can go in and look into this, but they did scientific experiments where they played classical music to, I think it was tomato plants or maize crops or whatever it was. But they found that the crops grew better if the classical music was played at specific times, because there are certain frequencies within certain classical music that allow for the stomata to open and close naturally much more better. So sound is very, very important. Don't sit there and say, I just do PA, and therefore you brush aside sound as if it's absolutely nothing. Trust you me, it's one of the most, in this day and age, it's one of the most important aspects of ministry alongside everything else. So don't take this too lightly. So we're gonna quickly change things up. We're gonna have a quick look at this new camera whilst I talk you through a few other parts. Then we'll go straight through to a few diagrams I have prepared, and I will explain everything for you so that you you get a much more clear understanding. And then what you need to do is you need to go back to your church, look at your setup, and decide what it is you need to change, adjust, in order for you to get the best quality out of everything. So we're going to move quickly onto this, see how this works. So as you can see, this is a little bit more better. As I promised you, I was going to work on improving the quality of these videos. So this is both video-wise and sound-wise. I'm learning as well. This is a new experience for me, so bear with me. But yeah, as you can see, we're going to speak about coverage. Now, all coverage is, in a nutshell, is how much you can distribute your sound, or how well you can distribute your sound within your church. And the better you can distribute that sound, the better it is in terms of the people that are receiving it. So for example, let's forget volumes for now. Let's look at what the individual's actually hearing. If you've ever been in a nightclub or somewhere where there's a DJ playing, you've gone for a wedding, and this is maybe the after party and the DJ is playing, you'll often find that all the sub frequencies will hit you lower. You know what I mean? And you'll have some frequencies that might hit you higher, and they'll force you or cause you to move your body to the music in a particular way. So for example, there are certain songs that you listen to and straight away you want to bob your head. Nobody told you that on this song you have to bob your head. You just found yourself naturally wanting to bob your head. There's other songs you've listened to where you hear them and naturally you want to move your hips. You want to move the lower part of your body. Others you want to sway, Other songs, they cause you, and it's how the frequencies are hitting your body and where they're hitting your body that causes you to want to do certain things. So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about, because we're talking about speakers. When I say coverage, you can have a situation where you have a sub speaker, a bass bin, and you can have a top. And what you can do is you can distribute your sound in such a way that you only have certain things, and we spoke about this in one of the previous videos, but you can have your kick drum and your bass guitar coming out of your sub speaker, and then you can have the vocals and various other more lighter things coming out of your top speaker. What that means is it distributes the sound evenly, so that when the individual is receiving that signal to them, they get a nice even distribution, and they can actually feel where those frequencies are coming from. So this is one thing that you can sort of think about when you're setting up your setup. If you do have subs or sub speakers, if you know how to utilize them, and you can use your mixer, and we did speak about how to do it on the mixer we have here, but you know how to distribute the sound from your mixer to the subs and to the tops. Sometimes the crossovers are built into the actual speakers, so it happens naturally. Sometimes you want to send certain things across. Other times you've got a speaker management system, and we'll talk about that in another video. But essentially you can send your left and right out of your speaker into your speaker management system, and then from there, if you have different speakers situated in different places, it kind of works like surround sound. So you can send certain sounds to different areas. So if you ever went to the cinema, or you had surround sound in your house, you could be watching a movie and all of a sudden you hear footsteps, but they're only coming out of a specific speaker that's situated in a particular place. And then you hear some bass frequencies, and your sub is somewhere on the floor, and you feel those frequencies. It's a similar thing with what you do. So you can give, and you just imagine what it's like watching a movie through a high quality surround sound system with 9 or 10 or however many 8 speakers around you. You can give your congregation that same experience. It brings the experience to life, so they can actually feel and experience what it is that's going on. So if you've got a worshiper who's really good at delivering their worship, they can really feel and connect much better than before. So speakers and placement and coverage is really, really important. I think the whole thing of sound is important, but it's really, really important. So I'm going to go into some diagrams very quickly. Let's see if this is going to work. Fantastic. It has worked. So I'm going to go into some diagrams very quickly. Let's let's open this up very quickly here. And these are just diagrams I picked up off the internet. There's nothing sort of special to them. But at the minute we see I'm hoping this is showing what I need it to show on the screen. Probably should have tested this out, but we trust that it is doing what it's supposed to do. Give me 1 second. Okay, it's probably not going to show what I want it to show. Give me 1 second here. We will make this work on the video. So let's just go here. Let's do that. That's not what I want. Oh, this is interesting. You've got to love modern technology. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Okay. So. Okay, so here we see a diagram of a speaker, and straight away off the bat, what you have is a situation where it's showing you how this speaker will distribute its sound. So it will show you basically, sorry about that, it'll show you how a speaker works. Now, as you can see, if you're looking from the top, which is the picture on the left-hand side, you can see that this speaker is distributing its sound in a triangular shape. So it sort of starts off small and it gets wider and wider as it goes. But another thing you need to understand is you can see how dark the orange is at the actual speaker and how light and light it's getting as it's going farther away, which means the sound will get quieter the further it travels away from the speaker. So even though it's covering a wider angle much further away, it's actually getting quieter and quieter. So one of the ways in which you can then combat this to ensure that the people at the back can hear clearly enough and the people at the front are not sort of beaten up by the sound is where you choose to place your speaker. Now, in a previous video, we spoke about where I would place my speakers to ensure that there's sort of a full sound in the auditorium. And it's similar to if you've ever been to sort of arenas. I went to the O2 Arena a couple of years ago in London, and you'll see that there is the speakers are quite high up. They're up in the ceiling. I've been to the First Direct Arena once, and they're really, really high up. And the reason why they're high up, my rule of thumb is, if you place your speaker on a stand, make sure that the bottom of the speaker, or at the very least the bottom of the tweeter, which is the top part of the speaker, is above ear level of the tallest person. What that'll allow you to do is it'll allow you to crank the volume up a little bit more louder, but it's not hitting the individuals who are at the front right in their face. So I try and place the bottom of the speaker, and for some of you, your ceiling might not be tall enough, but I try and place the bottom of the speaker at least above the ear level of the tallest person in the church. And that way, like I said, you can really push that sound out. Now, bear in mind, the higher you put the speaker, the more you'll have to angle it down at the congregation. whilst this is a sort of 2D representation, the sound is not actually going up in length, in height, and in width. It's actually going out in 3D, so in surround. So this will be more of a circular movement, 360 degrees that it's hitting you, than it being, height and length, if that makes sense. But we'll use these sort of pictures. This picture here was really just to demonstrate to you that when you're looking at a speaker and it's distributing its sound, it does it in two ways. You can see from this picture on the left that it is left and right going wide, and this is where we spoke about panning in a previous video. And you can also see that it's height and depth, so it's up and down as well. But remember, this is going to be 360 degrees. This is just a picture, obviously. It can't depict 360 degrees. But the sound will be coming out. And sound moves in a straight direction. It doesn't bend. Now, what will happen is when sound impacts a surface, the harder the surface, the harder the sound will hit the surface and bounce back. So if you've got a very weird shaped building, you will find that it will echo and bounce quite a bit in certain areas. That's very disorientating. I can't even say this word, on the ears. So if you find that you have areas like that in your church, get some foam padding and put it up there, so that, or get something that can absorb sound. And what will happen is when it hits those areas, it will get absorbed rather than bounce and ping around, causing that disorientation for the people in the congregation. So this is what this sort of image is here to show. We're going to move on to the next image. Where are we? So let's see if we can come back here. I hope that was showing. I really do. I'll play back the video and see if it was showing. But I hope somebody's learned something from today. I'm back on my original camera. I'm going to give the new one a rest for now. But I hope somebody's learned something today. Please, if you have any questions, ask me. Just put a comment in below. Ask me questions. I'll do more videos. I'll be able to answer more specific things. If I know where the problems are, I can help you. So don't keep quiet. Communicate. Talk amongst yourselves. If you've found a little hack that's worked for you, share it. Share it below. Everybody gets to benefit from this. Don't sort of keep things quiet. If you know something I don't know, if I've said something that may not be correct, it may not be beneficial to everybody, just point it out and say, look, this area here, and let's all help each other. I'm still learning as much as I'm putting these videos out, but there's not a lot of help out that's out there. And most people who do videos probably want you to hire their services, or they want to make money out of you. Let's build a community that we all help each other out. But anyway, I'm going to end this video at this point. Like and subscribe. It shows me that you want to see more of this kind of content. If I'm looking at this and I'm not seeing a lot of engagement from people, it kind of gives me the impression that this is not something that you want to see. This is not something that is sort of benefiting people. And if it isn't, that's fine. I can stop, put it aside, and work on some other projects. That's not a problem at all. But if it is something that you're sort of watching and you're thinking, yes, I want more of this, please let me know. Just write a little comment and say, look, yeah, we do want more. No, we're not interested. And then at least I know if it's helping or not. Anyway, catch you guys in the